Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to ask for your attention, please. We're going to get started this morning. Welcome, everybody, to the Lead series. My name is Mark Jessen, and I'm on the Board of Managers here at Dunwoody. And I have the distinct honor this morning of introducing our speaker, Mr. Darrell Thompson, who is the president of Boulder Options, a nonprofit located here in the Twin Cities. Boulder Options is an innovative nonprofit focused on healthy youth development and has been serving, and Darrell's been serving the organization for 26 years and counting in various roles. With his leadership, the organization has grown to serve over 4,500 kids annually in the Twin Cities Metro program and recently expanded services to his hometown in Rochester, Minnesota. So the program matches youth with caring adult mentors, and they introduce them to an active lifestyle based program that provides guidance, support, and opportunities through one-on-one, small group, and family-specific programming designed to help them make positive choices and live a healthier life. Now, this is putting it mildly, but athletics has played a significant part in Darrell's life and career. In 2016, Darrell was awarded the Athletes in Excellence Award from the Foundation for Global Sports Development, which recognizes exceptional athletes who uphold the values of good sportsmanship and fair play both on and off the field. Now, Darrell is often known as one of the most decorated athletes to graduate from John Marshall High School in Rochester, Minnesota, and was the leading rusher in University of Minnesota Gopher football history and was the first-round draft pick of the Green Bay Packers in 1990. Darrell sits on the board for the NFL Retired Players Association, the Prodeo Academy, V3, Black Men Teach, Twin Cities Public Television, and was named to CASA, the National Advisory Commission on Substance Abuse Among High School Students by Congressman Jim Ramstad. Darrell lives in Plymouth, Minnesota with his wife, Steph, and have 4 children, and now is a grandfather 2 times. In his off time, you could find Darrell riding his Peloton, fishing, or playing a round of golf. And throughout the college football season, Darrell is a Learfield Sports Gopher Game Day announcer and broadcasts live on 100.3 FM KFan. Now, we all are aware that the University of Minnesota's running back, Mohamed Ibrahim, is just recently surpassed Darrell's rushing TD record and is encroaching on the all-time rushing record. And I want to acknowledge the fact that Darrell has been extremely supportive of Mohamed in his career and has been very gracious with all this. And when I did mention that to him, he said, well, what else am I supposed to do? So, but I think you're doing it right. I guess if I were to characterize the closest thing to Superman that the state of Minnesota has produced, I would identify Darrell Thompson. Let's give him a warm welcome. This is why you're supposed to sit up front, so you don't have to walk away.
Well, I need to move. Good morning. So this is on, so I don't need to turn it on, right? We're good? Thank you. Superman might have been a little bit over the top, but I'm honored and I'm excited to be here this morning. So thank you for having me. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to the president and Mark for the honor to be here this morning. It's always to speak and to be a part of the community. And I drive by Dunwoody almost every single day. So to be inside is fun, especially tonight. And I got to see, I think it's Holly who came over to Boulder Options. It's helping us with the project, with our building and our electricity and all that type of thing. So COVID kind of slowed it down, as it slowed almost everything down. But hopefully one day we'll be able to revive that project. So It's at the end of my comments, but I'm just going to talk. I can't help. We have the Gopher football team did lose last weekend. Yes. It was a painful loss. We had a little bit of talk. I don't have a ton of football fans at work. We have some football fans at work. So it is also like you're thinking about, we're talking about like leadership and people. It's one of the things that happens sometimes. Sometimes you lose. And how do you respond to that loss? And here's the other, like when I'm thinking about, so I prepare for the game, I got the names, the notes, the stats, all these figures, the coaches, and I watched film, and I watched the interviews of the coaches. I'm like, okay, we're gonna win. Those guys aren't that good. Florida Atlantic was running the ball against them. Florida Atlantic, we just crushed those guys when we played those guys. So I go in there and I'm like, and I'm talking to the beat writer for the Star and Tribune. He goes, oh, we'll be over before we even end. So all of us are 100% wrong. We were all like drinking the Kool-Aid. And then it was interesting because Justin Gard, our sideline analyst, he said, you know what, I'm listening in on the sideline, and Tanner Morgan, the quarterback, goes to the offensive line. He said, you know what, guys, we're not playing hard. That was like a real definition of leadership to me, that Tanner said, you know what, guys, we're not playing hard. And unfortunately, in football and sports, basketball, anything, if you don't play hard, you don't win. And I have my little motto with our kids are athletic. And I said, you got to play hard, have fun, and don't take any crap. But number one is you got to play hard. And if you come out, and I say they didn't take it for granted. You can say you're reading the press clippings, all these like fantastical things that you can say, but at the end of the day, they lost, or we lost. You know, we win, we lose. So unfortunately, we lost, and that's just how it goes. So, but it is it's part of life, it's part of leadership, it's part of everything. So, to get back to my comments about how I got here. I think about my parents. My mom and dad are from the South. My mom is from West Point, Mississippi. My dad's from St. Louis, Missouri. And my dad was they had a minority recruitment program in Rochester, Minnesota. And my dad was an engineer. And he said, my dad grew up in St. Louis. It was, I wouldn't call it segregated. He was in a black neighborhood. He was like, this is it. He said, we need to go somewhere that's different, somewhere that has an opportunity for us and for my kids to be safer. So my parents moved to Rochester when I was a baby. My mom was a teacher and kind of a homemaker, and then my dad was an engineer. And I was very, very blessed to grow up. And I was writing it down. I joke a lot. I was also very blessed that both my parents were incredibly athletic and incredibly dedicated to the community. My parents were always doing things in the community. Kids were always at our house. My parents divorced when I was 5 years old. And there were still, there'd be young ladies at my mom's house, and there'd be young men at my dad's house. So the commitment to the community and the commitment to being positive and being around people was always something that was very, very important in my family. So I think about growing up, playing sports. Sports was important. My parents had similar values that we have. I think that's how it works. And I went through the recruiting process. I was playing football, I was playing basketball, and I was running track, and I was kind of like trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then these letters were coming in the mail from schools for me to play football. And this is when they were just mailing everything. This was back in the mid '80s. So they were mail, exactly. So the mail's showing up, and there's things in the mail, and I'm like, at first I wasn't filling out the letters. I would just take and I'd look, oh, this is a cool pamphlet. It says, Nebraska on it. And I would take and I would stuff it under my bed. And my mom's like, okay, and I get one that said, oh, this is Oklahoma, this is Minnesota, this is Iowa. And I would stuff it under my bed. And this back then you had to actually do like a questionnaire. It said, oh, Darrell Thompson, 6'1", 210 pounds. You had to fill it out and then send it back. I wasn't even doing that. My mom said, I think you should start filling these things out. I was like, okay. My dad said, I think you should start filling them out too, because people are starting to call us. And coaches are starting to show up at school. So that was the beginning of me. I was taking it serious, but I didn't know anyone else that was getting recruited. It isn't like now where they have stars and camps and all these things. So I was just like kind of taking it in. And through that process, I was, blessed. And there was pressure for me to come to the University of Minnesota, but I didn't really feel it that much. I was excited about having an opportunity, and this is my favorite, the funnest joke my dad told me. He said, "You know what, Dad?" I said, "These coaches are coming." I said, "Hayden Fry has come to our house. Tom Osborne, Lou Holtz, they're coming to my games. They're coming to my basketball games. They're coming to my football games." And the town was kind of buzzing. I was just kind of getting it. I said, "But that guy at St. John's said," he said, "You know what, Darrell, you can do here?" You said, "You can play basketball, you can play football, and you can run track." My dad goes, "You know what else you can do? You can also pay for it if you go there." I said, "I'm going to cross them off my list." I said, I don't think I want to do basketball, football, and track, and have a summer job to pay for my education." So that's the only reason I didn't go to St. John's. And I did love John Gagliardi. He was a great guy we had, and I joked with him about that. And Dave gave me the big thumbs up. The Johnnies are proud, and they're dominant now since you guys kicked out St. Thomas. I leave that alone. So, but anyways, the process of getting recruited and going to University of Minnesota was fun. It was a blast, and I think about it was interesting when I went to visit. It was Iowa, and we were at one of you go to dinner with like people and donors, and this is when you used to allow people to go to eat with donors. So I'm eating with these gentlemen, and one guy comes up and he says, "You know, what you got to think about, Darrell?" And I said, "Yeah, no, I don't know what I need to think about. Just I appreciate your advice." He said, "You need to think about where you'd like to be if you get hurt and you never, just say you break your leg or hurt your back or something, like, the third day of practice or the first game. Think about where you want to be if football doesn't work out." And I was like, yeah. So in the back of my head, I always asked that question. So my final four schools were Iowa, Nebraska, Minnesota, and Wisconsin. And I didn't take a visit to some other schools because I had a basketball coach that somehow convinced me that I should be at basketball practice on Saturday morning. So I just kind of leave that alone. But anyways, he said, but when I looked at those schools and I thought about one of the main reasons I'm here is because of this, of people like you guys, the University of Minnesota, the people, the industry, the opportunity to be here. I said, I love my wife is a Hawkeye. I like Iowa. My daughter was a Badger. I like the Badgers. I love Nebraska. I said, but I couldn't imagine after my visits and being there and like you go into the town, like you come into Minneapolis, you see like, oh, it's Minneapolis or St. Paul. There's the IDS. There's 3M. There's General Mills. There's Land O'Lakes. There's there's stuff. And you go into Iowa, go into Coralville, it's like, that's it. So I said, I don't want to be there. And you go into Lincoln, Nebraska, there's even less. There's less in Lincoln than there is in Iowa. In Badgers, it's great if you want to have cocktails. I'm all for it, cocktails. But that's, and actually Wisconsin wasn't, well, now they're struggling a little bit. They weren't got hot then. So it wasn't even as much of a topic to them. But I chose the University of Minnesota because of the opportunity, the community, the University of Minnesota, and people and places that like where I'm at right now. And it's interesting because it goes fast. It just goes fast. I remember the first practice when I was a Gopher when I was in high school. I never got challenged in practice when I was in high school. I got challenged in games sometimes, but in my first practice as a Gopher, I got the ball and I was running, and then I ran a little faster, and that worked in high school, but everyone that was good in high school is there. So I ran, then I was out of bounds. Like I got like 1 yard, and I was like, the coach said, you got to do something. You got to cut back. You got to run over somebody. You got to put a move on them. I said, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I got to do something. So little by little, I figured it out, and I got a little bit better, and I got more comfortable. And in the first game, I was the third team tailback, and the other two backs were struggling and had fumbled in the first half. So in the second half, I got in and I had 200 yards in the second half and 4 touchdowns. I thought I was like, oh, this is just easy. But it was against Pacific, so it wasn't a very strong opponent. And the funny thing is, so I had that game. I was actually think I was leading the country in rushing for like a week. I was leading the country, and it was my first game in college. Last year I was playing against Mayo High School and Faribault, and now I'm playing against Pacific. Next week I'm playing against Oklahoma. So the next week we play against Oklahoma. They had Brian Bosworth, Tony Casillas, Jamel Holloway, Spencer Tillman. They had what we would call in the football business the best team that money could buy. They were ahead of the NIL, name, image, likeness. Players were getting compensated, we'll just say that. So they had a really, really good team. And against Oklahoma, I had 35 yards, and I returned like 8 kickoffs. And returning 8 kickoffs is not a good thing. That means your team is getting that. So I was humbled. It was a humbling experience for me to go and play against them. But you survive, you live, and you grow. Later that season, we had one of the biggest highlights I had in my college career, which I didn't realize that it was a highlight or one of the biggest highlights in my college career really until like the middle to end of my career, because the goal is always to win, to be successful, to lead your team. And we beat the number 1 ranked team in the country in their building. And the seniors that are on the team, they had played and they were crying and all these things were going on. I was kind of got dinged up in the game, but I said, aren't we supposed to win? Why are these guys crying? What's the big deal? We never beat a number 1 ranked team. People don't beat number 1 ranked teams, on the road very often. We're able to have that. So that was really one of the highlights of my my college career. So it was exciting and a lot of fun. In the 4 years, they feel like a blur, but they also some of the greatest times of my my life. I think about the relationships and how things change and evolve. When I came to college, and we talk about like leadership and opportunity, and I wanted to starting to think about being a change agent. And my friends and some of the other older guys on the team, we had where the black guys sat on one side of the cafeteria and the white guys sat on the other, and we said, we can't do that. We're a team, we need to be together. We go in the huddle together, we shower together, we run around together, we drink together, we study together. The simple thing is eating. We should be able to eat together. So myself and some of the older guys on the team said, we're going to start eating together. So we just, it wasn't really any formal. It was like, we're just going to have a table. And first people were kind of like, wow, look at that. I said, no, it's not that big a deal. This is like, 1987, 1988. So to me, that was, it was important, part of it, just to kind of start break down some racial tension, but also just for people to be together. And I thought it felt to me like it was a really, really important piece of what needed to happen in our community, and hopefully it's still happening today. And I also had the opportunity and it's interesting thinking about, I never thought very much, kind of similar to getting recruited, I never thought very much about pro football until one of my friends came back from the combine. He said, I saw your name on this list. You're like the 3rd or 4th running back on the list of running backs. So I started to think of pro football when I was a junior in college. And it actually kind of reinvigorated me, because I was like, not that I was bored with college, but I was like, okay, I have 1,000 yards, I had 1,000 yards. What can I do? And after thinking about the opportunity to play pro football, it reinvigorated me, made my summer workouts more important, and made me a little bit more excited about it. And after my senior year, guys played 4 years then, so it's a lot different, but I was drafted by the Green Bay Packers. And it was, I learned a lot about Minnesota. I learned a lot about the Green Bay Packers, and I learned that the Packers existed. I didn't know this. I didn't know the Packers existed before the Vikings. And there was tons of Packer fans in Minnesota. There was actually one Packer family one Packer fan in my hometown that would buy flowers for my mom every single time that we played. I never knew about it until she passed away. So it's kind of a cute story, but it was, the Packer fans are special. And being drafted is like, it's hard to describe. I get like, I'm not really misty, but I get like it's almost like pretend. Like you watch the draft and they said, and then they said, Darrell Thompson drafted, I think I got drafted 19th or 18th overall. And I was like, that's me. So to get drafted and to get on a plane and to have the opportunity to go to Green Bay and play, and it was similar to a little bit when I got to college. And I was thinking about the first practice, and there's like Tim Harris, and there's all these old guys, not old guys, but older, and they're men playing the NFL. College, you got guys and men kind of. In the pros, they're like real men. And I was telling the young guys I'm mentoring, you're going in the field, I said, these guys are playing for keeps. It's not like, hey, you know what? Let's go Wolverines. It's like, no, I want your job because it's excellent pay. And I would like to have that. If I can get paid 6 figures, 7 figures to do this job, I'm gonna take it serious. And they do. So that was I wouldn't call it a rude awakening, but it was also just that it's very, very serious. It's very, very fun and technical, but it was a blast and a tremendous opportunity for me to play for the Green Bay Packers. And I think about my first regular season game was against the San Francisco 49ers. And for those of you guys that are at least somewhere near my age, I'm 54 years old, they had Joe Montana, Jerry Rice. I wrote this one down. They had Haley, the defensive end that's in the Hall of Fame. And they had this other guy that I was really concerned about. Number 42, Ronnie Lott. I mean, so we're concerned. All those guys I named off are Hall of Famers. And I was concerned about Ronnie Lott. Ronnie Lott is maybe one of the most recognized hitters of all time. And I watched highlights of Ronnie Lott. And my friends and my teammates and other running backs were in the room were watching and said, you know what can't happen this weekend? We call it the Ronnie Rap. If Ronnie runs, and Ronnie wasn't tackling you, he was going, we call this, to the other side. He wasn't coming, he wasn't coming here, he was coming over here. So I wanted to make sure that during the game that I didn't have the Ronnie Rap. And I was just kind of getting going. I was a rookie, so I'm lining up and playing, and then we're at my footwork. And my coach is looking, he goes, my position coach, after he take me, he goes, what are you doing? He goes, it looks like you're looking around. And I was like, well, I'm just. He goes, we drafted you here because, you're great running back, University of Minnesota, drafted your first round. He said, you need to run, you can't be, but I did not want to get the Ronnie Rap. So I was looking wherever Ronnie was at, and Ronnie came out, I was going to get down. I didn't want to have him come because I've seen him sail through people like time after time after time. And I didn't want to have that. So it didn't happen in that game. But I did get, my coach gave me some advice, and it was actually interesting because Ray Nitschke played for the Packers. He's a Hall of Famer. He was in our locker room. He was doing like a radio show or something like that. He came through, and I was just, going to ice I don't know what I was doing, just like I was in the locker room. And Ray Nitschke gave me some advice, and he said, you know what, Darrell, he said, you were a great running back at the University of Minnesota. I was like, oh yeah, thank you, Mr. Nitschke. Thank you. He said, you need to realize that you just need to play. He said, you know the assignments. You're a smart young man. You're picking up blitzes. You're doing the things you need to do. He said, you just need to play. He said, don't think. He said, players that think too much, that doesn't work. He said, you just need to play. And it was the best advice I ever got from him. I felt it was an opportunity. It was leadership, and it was also him taking the time. And I've tried to do that myself. When I see a young man, like we talk about Muhammad Ibrahim breaking my rushing records, hopefully he'll probably break the rushing record. He already broke the touchdown record. He'll probably get some more. But I try to make sure that I take the time to give that little bit of advice to someone when I do see them, because I think it's sometimes from an outside source, from just like a guy who cares. I think it makes a big difference. So that was an opportunity for him and for me to have that moment together that I've never forgotten about. And then I knew also that, unfortunately, I played football. I have like a little bit, Dave noticed I'm limping. My goal every day is to not limp. Okay, I walk in the morning, I'm stretching, I'm on the Peloton, I'm trying to walk and loosen. And when someone tells me I limp, I walk like an old football player, I'm like, damn, I'm trying to walk. I'm working on my walk, I'm working on my gait, like all the time. And unfortunately, I still limp. But I knew you play pro football, you're like, I'm a running back. I mean, you're just playing in traffic. So you run and you get tackled. Run and you get tackled. Just a normal tackle is a normal tackle. It just, you just little by little, it just wears you down. So after, 5 years, 6 training camps, all the training camps in college, I was like, I was done. And then I got released by the Packers. I went to this one last physical, and the doctor said, and I had this, my right hip was really hurting, It was hurting me to train. I was going to this therapist and all these other people to get it like right so I could practice and train. But I knew, and in football, or especially professional sports, if you can't train like hard, then you get in training camp, you're a little fragile. And it's not for the fragile when you're in training camp. You need to be kind of like Eye of the Tiger every day, foom, 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 foom. And I was like, I was not foom, foom anymore. I was like, oh man, I gotta watch out here. So that doesn't work. So, but what I found out when they did this x-ray is that I had bone spurs in my right hip and that it was bone on bone in a couple spots. And that was why my hip was hurting. So at that point I said, I think I should retire. And I'd been involved with Boulder Options. Boulder Options is about 2.5 or 3 years older than my time in my existence with Boulder Options. So I got started with Boulder Options. It was a part-time position, and I was honored to be there. Our founder, Bill Steele, is the gentleman that founded the organization, and I was trying to find something that I was passionate about. And when coaches and scouts came to talk to me, sometimes they'd be like, what do you want? I said, I want to work with kids. Everyone says that. I said, no, I do want to work with kids. I want to make an impact on the community. So Boulder Options has been that vehicle for me for the past almost 27 years that I've been with Boulder Options. So I've been to birthdays and graduations, and I've held babies of kids, of young ladies and young men that have graduated from our program. Tatiana, the young lady back there, she graduated 10 years ago. She's our first mentee that's become an employee for our organization. So yeah, Lucy and Tatiana are here. So if you need or want information about Boulder Options, we'd love to have in our new Chief Operating Officer. April is also here as well. So if you want or need any more information, please, if you feel free to ask them for information. So the crux of what we do with Boulder Options is we're an activity-based mentoring program. That makes us unique from other mentoring programs. So we run with our youth, we bike with our youth, and I think our frequency is a little bit more than other programs. So I think that's the piece that makes us unique, along with what we call our Healthy Habits curriculum. So speakers and our staff will facilitate where we talk about health, nutrition, financial literacy. We did this piece, which is pretty cool. It seems like we're doing a lot of it lately. Budget bites. I think it's food. So kids get to learn how to cook on a budget. So try to stretch your dollar. And Christina came in and explained to me, I didn't exactly understand every piece of it, but it's just really just our kids learning about, food, the cost of food. And then if a young lady or young man comes to their house and they say, hey, I want more apples. I want some brown rice. I want some black beans and things like that. Then a mom or dad's like, oh, we could do that. Maybe that'd be better than going to McDonald's or Burger King or something like that. And you can save money and you can stretch your meal a little bit farther. And it's always fun if someone has that tool. So our Healthy Habits curriculum is really, really important, and it's fun, I think, for our kids. The next piece I think that is fun and unique about our program is that we set goals. So we set one educational goal, one physical goal, and then one goal that the mentor, the mentee, and our staff will kind of help them set on their own so that they get the opportunity, and we call them SMART goals, so they're reachable goals, and you have to have the steps to reach those goals. So it's those components are really, really important to us. And then to me, the most important piece of our program, and this is for Boulder Options, kinship, big brothers and big sisters, is a mentor. A mentor, as defined in the dictionary, is a wise and trusted friend. I call a mentor someone who maybe does not benefit from being a mentor. I'm just going to give you this advice. I think it's a really good idea if you brush your teeth every night. That's an oversimplification, but that's what we like for our kids to realize, that homework is important, oral health is important, nutrition is important, financial literacy is important. All those pieces are important. And we open up our buildings, so we have nights where kids can come and mentors can come and do homework and have activities and things like that. So the mentoring piece is one of the biggest, if not the biggest piece of our program. And I talked about the fact that our program works, that I'm very, very proud of it. We also know that our youth, their grades go up, typically 1 point while they're in our program. One of our kind of academic goals we might set, or that we or I might set, we kind of lead them that direction, would be we'd like for you to be at school. And usually if you're at school, you'll do better than if you're not at school. So those pieces are really important for us. And then a lot of time that I've heard it from many of the mentors. They'll have work or some project, and they'll be like, I can do some work while we're at the library or at some event, and the mentee can bring their homework. And if the mentee does their homework and the mentor does some of their work, what we've noticed, and I've noticed over the last 20 plus years, is that young lady or young man goes back to school and they got a little swagger, a little confidence. It's nice when you go to school and say, hey, Darrell, you got you? Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah, my work's done. Yeah, I was like, oh, way to go, Darrell. You haven't been turning in homework, but well, that's great. It's a great start. I joke about that. I was telling someone I was just a decent student in high school, and I was dating a young lady when I was in high school, and I did an experiment when I was a senior. And one time we were leaving, and she said, oh, I got some homework. Do you have some? I was like, yeah, it's in my locker. She's like, homework? I said, oh, it's in the locker. So we went back in, got the homework, and that was I did the homework, and I came back to school, and I was like, oh, wow, it took like 20 minutes. I'm going to do homework the rest of the year. And my grades went up. Embarrassing, like a whole point. My grades went up. I was like, and it helped me to get into school, helped me with the ACT, helped me with all those things. So it's like my little reminder that it does work, just that time and the confidence, and teachers have confidence in you because you're not fussy, you feel good, you got some confidence. Like you're not like, well, if they call on me, I got like a crumpled up sheet of paper that doesn't really say anything, versus if you do have it. So those pieces are, kind of the key components of what we do. So very, very proud of it. And we'd love to have you guys think about being a mentor, being a volunteer, being a donor, be a supporter, any of those things, or just being an advocate. We're always looking for someone to think about being a mentor for Boulder Options. That's really one of the main reasons that obviously that Lucy and Tatiana are here today. If you're thinking about being a mentor or being a volunteer, we would love to have you thinking about being a mentor or volunteer with our organization. And then I'll talk just really briefly about I got one of the funnest kind of side hustle jobs that a guy could have. I get to talk on the radio for 3 months out of the year about football. It also gives me an excuse, like my wife, so I tape football games. I listen to college football on the radio, listen to pro football on the radio. I'm like, honey, this is like honey, I'm studying, I'm prepping, we got to play Illinois, we got to play Nebraska, we got to play these guys. I got to go in here. Honey, it's tough, dude. She's like, yeah, go downstairs and do that. Go downstairs and do that. But I got to work with the legendary Ray Christensen. And Ray Christensen gave me, I was like, God, I want some advice. I'm going to give me some, and Ray said, I was like looking, and in the beginning, I thought I was bad. I wasn't a very good, I didn't know how to prep. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know the names and numbers. I didn't have any systemization. I watched what Ray was doing. He gave me some clarity, some organization, some advice. The first piece of advice he gave me, he said, calm down. He said, take a deep breath before you say something. And I was like, so I came, I was like, that guy made the catch. He's really fast. I was like, and he's like, oh, he said, and then during the course he said, you need to take a deep breath. So both Dave Mona and I were like, we were going to explain like the whole thing, whatever was going on. He said, you guys just need to take a deep breath before we come on, and obviously be prepared. That was a piece for him. So the opportunity to work with Ray Christensen and Dave Mona for 3 years. I worked with Dave Lee and Dave Mona for another almost like 13 or 14 years. And now I've had the opportunity to work with Mike Grimm and Justin Gard. And now we have a new young guy with us, Tanner Hoops. He's our studio scoreboard specialist or something like that for the last couple of years. So it's a great opportunity to see football, to see different stadiums, and to have some fun at the same time. So that's my ultimate side hustle. When I think about, and I was thinking about leadership, and I think one of the most important pieces, and everyone's got different leadership styles and philosophies. One of my main leadership styles and philosophies is that I'm a listener. I'd like to listen. I was thinking about when I came to the Packers, our team was not good. And our team was doing bad stuff, like off the field, all that stuff that you see like on North Dallas 40, all that stuff was happening. Everything that was crazy and wild about the NFL, all that was happening. And it was like the norm. They got rid of the coach and the new guys came in, and new leadership came in. It's like, we're not going to drink the night before the games. We're not going to party and do all these other crazy things. We're going to bring the focus back on football. And that's what Mike Holmgren did. He listened to the players. He brought in a healthier environment. The food started getting better. We used to even have, they stopped it. We used to have, I thought it was just normal. Because what do I know? I'm just like, I come from Minnesota, I go to Packers, so you get on the plane after the game and they would give you a 3-pack of beer. It was just like a normal, like, should you have beer immediately after a football game on the plane? Probably not. But I got the beer and I was like, everyone, they're drinking. I said, well, might as well belly up, So that type of thing stopped. It was just a normal behavior. So listening was a really key thing. And then I had kind of a funny, interesting story. I had a young guy at Boulder Options. This is how we started our nutrition piece. This young guy said, hey, Darrell, I got an idea. I want to start cooking with the kids. We're going to cook. We're going to be knives, forks. We're going to go buy the groceries. We're all going to come in and we're going to cook with the kids. And I was like, in my mind, I said, that's a really dumb idea. I said, but it said, get knives, forks, the kids. I said, this seems like a bit much, It ended up being one of the most important and best things we ever did. So I said, well, okay, this is like, I don't know, 14 years ago or something like that. So it's been a while. Now nutrition is one of the most important pieces of what we do. Teaching our kids how to cook is one of the most important things. And it's been built on from just kind of bringing in spaghetti and noodles and salad and everything to now the budget bites and all those other pieces. So they come together. So like just kind of the listening and slowing down really, really makes a big difference. And then the second piece is to leadership to me is patience. I sure wish that when I coached youth football or basketball or been at Boulder Options, everything happened it doesn't happen like that. I wish things so. To me, it's listening is important. Patience is extremely important. And sometimes, and this is the hardest thing that I actually wrote it down. I said, sometimes you have to watch a mistake. Like, you know what I mean? Like some ways, not as tragic. Like I don't want someone to drive off a cliff. We're gonna stop the car. So, but sometimes you kind of got to watch something and be like, and then the reaction to when you kind of know to be not like I told you so, but to be like, well, maybe how will we do things differently next time, versus just the I told you so. You don't know what you're doing. You're why don't you just listen to me? That doesn't. It kind of sometimes just sends someone not in a very good direction. So it's just, it's very, very important. And I also believe that you got to have trust. You have to have trust. You have to have love. You have to have respect. Those to me are some of the key pieces of at least leadership for me. It's listening, it's patience, it's trust, it's love, it's respect, and taking the time to listen to someone, hear them out, because they're the future. I'm concerned. I'm concerned about Boulder Options, but one of my pieces I say a lot of times at our graduation at Boulder Options that I want you guys to be here at Boulder Options working here one day. Tatiana said that I said that, and she thought that I don't think she thought I was kidding, but now she's working here. And maybe one day Tatiana's in charge of Boulder Options. That'd be a wonderful thing. So the goal is that the youth, obviously they're our future. We need them. The Dunwoody young ladies and young men are here today. They're part of the future. So to me, it's an honor to be here, and I really, really appreciate it. So I don't have any more comments, advice, or ideas, or Gopher or Viking or anything else comments, but I'm here. If you got any questions or anything, feel free.
Darrell, we have time for a couple questions. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yep. Go ahead. We'll start over here. Hang on. Wait for the mic, please.
Hi, Murray Deeth with Sundance Family Foundation. What ages do you focus on?
10 to 14. Yeah, 10 to 14 is the youth that we work with. That's actually a great question. I should have said that. We also think it's a point of trajectory. A really, really good opportunity to get involved in a young lady or young man's life is at that age, because they don't usually have a job, boyfriends, girlfriends, car, all that stuff. I mean, they might have a cell phone and that type now, but at least it's a really, really good time in their life to get involved.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is William Slauson, and my question is what is your company doing with diversity and inclusion with the way that we're going right now in the communities, and how are you gearing those things with the students that you're working with and the youth that you're working with, and changing the trajectory of their mind and how they perceive being able to come into situations as a minority that's more white dominated?
That's a big question. I'd say the first part of it is our staff is very, very diverse. You know, male, female, a lot of different ethnicities are represented. We'd like for our kids to see people that look like them in our staffing, from myself to our program coordinators and our leadership. So that's piece of it, and just going through the training and learning and trying to do the absolute best that we can, and also recognizing that the majority of our kids that come into our program, maybe 60% are kids of color. The majority of our mentors that come into our program, 90 to 95% are Caucasian. So trying to make sure that we educate people about what they're going into, the situation they're going to go into. You can get maybe more information from Lucy before you take off, but it's really important for us to make sure that people go into the situation with their eyes open and know that this isn't maybe like it is at your house. It's a little bit different and a little bit challenging, and you're going to a challenging situation anyway because this person's been asked or has asked to have a mentor in their life. So we do the best we can, and we do training, diversity, equity, inclusion. But to me, it's even more. That's like we do that, but to me, it's more a representation of the staff that represents the community, so that there's at least a little bit of feeling of comfort when one of our staff members comes inside the house.
Hi. Is financial literacy part of your program? And thanks for coming.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we do financial literacy from our budget bites, a little component inside our nutrition component, to actually talking to our kids about budgeting and saving, and also making sure that they realize the most important person for them to take care of initially is themselves. We have a lot of kids that feel like, and I've just sat in, we had some staff turnover. It's been like 6 or 7 years ago. We just kind of started a financial literacy. And one of the main things that we heard from the youth was that, I want to make sure I do this. I want to give $50 a month to my mom. It's like, if you get going and start taking care of yourself, it makes it a lot easier, because then your mom doesn't actually need to take care of you, but you need to take care of yourself. So, but we do work on that, and it's important. Thank you.
My name is Vicki Blyce, and my question has to do with the fact that such a small percentage of young men who start out in sports end up with the privilege of playing professionally. And to move from that realm into what you're doing takes some humility. And so how did you do that?
How did I move from professional sports to the youth? Well, I think a big part of it's my parents. My mom and dad were very, very, and like I said, they were incredibly athletic. But both of my parents had degrees from historically black colleges. So education was important, community was important. And it's interesting, I might have a high school game where I had, 4 touchdowns or 5 touchdowns, and we didn't really talk about it. I'm like, hey, you know what? I need you to take the trash out. We got to cut the grass. Need you to do some homework, which I probably didn't bring home. So, that was it was probably it was, my parents, it was important and it was fun, but it was like, that's what we did. But it wasn't the focus of who I was as a person.
I have a question about the achievement gap. And I'm wondering if your 10 to 14-year-olds come to you, and can they read and write and do math at grade level? And if so, great. And if not, does that complicate the job that you have to do?
We don't really do an assessment of where they're at baseline. We know that, and it's frustrating to me that the achievement gap is higher here in Minnesota than it is anywhere else in the United States. So we work very hard to get young ladies and young men on track and to help increase that. And we're making a dent in it, but we're not the level of dent that I would like to make in the achievement gap. Thank you.
Hi, Darrell. It seems like one of the themes has been challenging the norms, whether it's challenging that norm of drinking after the games, after the Packer games, or challenging the norms of how kids are raised. Can you speak a little bit about how that leads to change?
Well, I think challenging norms is I think a big thing in our country right now. It's a big thing always has kind of been a big thing for me to even just like for myself and as a leadership role in our organization to be. And when we go to our graduations, a lot of the kids don't know that I'm the president of Boulder Options sometimes until the graduation. They see me in the building, but I don't say I'm the president. But I'd like for them to think that they could be the president of Boulder Options. They could be the president of Dunwoody, that they could be a top salesman. They could be the top, stockbroker, whatever it is that they'd like to do. We'd like for them to pursue that. But to do that, we do need to challenge norms, but they also need to see someone that looks like them in that role. And I think it's hard to do it if you can't see it. So that part to me is one of the biggest things. So we're very, very intentional when we have our career nights and our opportunities that we put people that look like them in front of them as much as possible.
Okay. Got time for one more if anybody has one last question. I don't see any, Darrell. So how about a round of applause and thank you so much, Darrell. Thank you for a great message and thank you for what you're doing for our community. It's appreciated and it's making a difference. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Don't forget, next month on November 3rd, we'll have Gloria Perez here. She is the president and CEO of the Women's Foundation. Thanks for being here again, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.